All right, two teams still looking for their first win of the season. Incheon United and Daejeon Hana Citizen. Will they meet in round 4 this Saturday? That means we have another KLU Pod derby. That means Luke Evans and I are sat down to talk about it. Both teams are looking for their first win of the season, and Daejeon are basically trying to, I think, be Incheon to some degree. If they want AFC Champions League qualification. And even the manager, even Song, said that he was quite envious of Incheon in the ACL, and he felt a bit guilty for the fans for not being
Mm.
able to guide the team to it last year, because obviously they flirted with the top four. It's two teams who are but definitely on the up. Incheon have obviously had that head start; they are a few steps ahead of Daejeon, but it's quite a sort of interesting fixture, this one.
It is, and I think there's a lot for Incheon to prove as well. Qualifying for the Champions League once, it can be written off as a fluke, and I think there's a lot to do to make sure that people see progress and see improvement. We came very close last year. I think a goal in the last game against Daegu would have meant we drew, would have got us an extra point, and we would have qualified, possibly for ACL2. And it's fine margins. It's little things in games that can have such a big impact at the end of the season. But it's nice that people are now wanting to do an Incheon, and that means to qualify for like ACL rather than escaping relegation on the last day. It's nice that doing an Incheon has kind of become a bit more than the bare minimum.
Well, it's become smart recruitment and making it into the ACL, or even just the top six after, like you said, years and years of relegation battles. So that's the new doing an inch on, I think. Form wise, as we head into this game at the weekend, it's identical. 2 draws and 1 loss from the first 3 games of the season. Both teams have scored 3. Incheon have conceded 1 goal fewer, though, so they sit 9th and Daejeon sit 10th. In terms of away form for Daejeon, last year they won just 4 games all season, and 3 were against teams that finished below them in the table: Suwon Blue Wings, Gangwon, and Jeju. And the Jeonbuk win was early doors, and that was before they'd sacked Kim Sang-shik, or before he'd resigned, whichever way it was. Incheon, though, their home form, that was quite good last year, Luke.
Yeah, we did really well. We only lost 5 times at home last year. We had 7 wins and 8 draws. Ideally, this year we'll turn some of those draws into wins, although we're currently 0-1. The record between Daejeon and Incheon was in Incheon's favour. I remember the second round, I think it was the first home game last year, there was a 3-3 draw, which was quite a late equaliser for Daejeon. And that was a really good game. It was quite exciting. And it was back when we didn't know what to expect from Daejeon and we didn't know what to expect from Incheon. Yeah, exciting game. There was an Incheon win, 3-1 in Daejeon in, I think it was June. And then a 2-0 Incheon win in the final game between the teams in round 23.
Yeah, just the 3 meetings last year, with them being in Final A and Final B. Daejeon's last win over Incheon goes back to 2013, a 2-1 away win in round 4 that I was there for. Eong-yi and Zhao Paulo scored for Daejeon, and Jejun for Incheon. That was 10 meetings ago. So it's been pretty one-sided ever since then. 8 wins for Incheon, 1 for Daejeon, and 1 draw. So we have had an international break. How do you think Incheon will have spent that? Because they went in on a high, perhaps, after that 3-3 draw with Ulsan just before.
Yeah, the game was it was a tough game because both teams were on top in different spells. We were in front and then we were behind. So coming out with the draw is probably a fair result, and hopefully, like getting on the score sheet, scoring 3 goals, it will work as a catalyst for the season coming. I mean, we've had 3 tough games and then we've had an international break. I actually think the international break has worked well because it provides us with a chance to kind of have 2 weeks to look at what's gone well, what's not particularly worked, tweak things where we need to, and analyze what do we do for the next set of games. I know Daejeon scored late to secure a point against Gangwon as well. For you, did that feel like a win?
Yeah, in some ways it did. Obviously, Umlapa as well on his debut came on. He was very good. He looks like a really shrewd signing, even though he hasn't played for 8 months, he looked very, very good. And in that finish, he had no right to score from there with that angle.
Yeah.
But very well taken goal. So him scoring on his debut and scoring late on in the game felt a bit like a win. They also could have probably got the second goal if they were a bit more composure. So
yeah,
it wasn't that first win that they needed, but it felt a bit like it for the fans, I think. But for the players, now obviously there are those behind the scenes videos that the club put on YouTube for every game, and you can usually tell the mood by how little footage they put in after. But there wasn't much. There was just a few sort of seconds of the players sat in the dressing room, kind of slumped with solemn looks on their faces. And it looked like that they just look a bit despondent. And from what I've heard as well, they have been kind of low. The mood's a bit low. So, whereas a lot of teams will have allowed their players maybe to go back to their home countries or go on holiday or have a little bit of time off, we haven't done that. We've been straight into getting ready for this game. So obviously we've had like Gutek's gone back to Latvia because he had to play for the national team, but I think most of the players have been kept within the squad and they've been working on how to get this first win of the season. So I mean, I suppose given that they've both had mixed starts to the season, we could highlight some of the good things and the bad things. So as Incheon are the home team for this game, what positive thing can you think of about the sort of season so far?
The first thing that comes to mind would be the young players that we've had starting and playing. Everybody always looks to the main people, the big names in the squad. But for us, the younger players have actually taken their opportunities quite well. Kim Sung-min and Park Sung-ho have played quite a lot already, and both have done really well. They've shown that they actually deserve to have a place in the team. Kim Sung-min is lightning quick and has been running up and down the wing. He had a really good run out against Seoul, and Park Sung-ho got a goal against Ulsan. Which was a really important goal. And he was in the right place at the right time to poke home. And it's kind of getting a goal as a young player is a huge confidence boost. And I think that's something that's really positive. Getting, first goal of the season, playing really well as you come into a team as a young player. Yeah, no complaints there.
Yeah, I think I'll go with a similar tone because Gutek looks excellent. Obviously, he scored in that first game of the season against Jeonbuk. He has missed a couple of chances in games afterwards, but his all-round play, you can see why they let Thiago go, and then they are sort of pinning all their hopes on him. And Lapa, like I said just before, he looks really, really good. So having those two proper number nines who are obviously of a high quality, like, if your strikers are on form or they look like they're going to be contributing, that's usually half the battle. So that's one positive. How about a negative?
I think the sheer volume of injuries. I know I've mentioned it in previews, but we have quite a lot of players out. And one of the areas that we're struggling with is in central midfield. Typically, we'd have quite a lot of central midfielders and we'd have like 5 or 6, and we'd only be using 2 of them at any one point. But right now we've got so many injuries in central midfield that people are playing out of position to provide cover. Against Seoul, and Poku was sitting back in a central midfield position when he's normally kind of much more of an attacking player, maybe a number 10. Kim Do-hyuk's out. We let Yoram go. We've got Shin Jin-ho missing. We've got Moon Ji-hwan missing. And so you've kind of got Lee Myung-ju and another player, usually a younger player, but the second half against Ulsan, like Park Sung-ho dropped back into central midfield because there was literally nobody else to play there. Injuries are a bit of a problem. But on the other hand, I suppose with all of these people out, when they come back, hopefully, we'll be able to build on that and we'll have a full strength team. but for now, injuries are causing an issue.
Fair enough. For us, I think composure is still an issue. The team are very easily flustered. And then against Jeju, they just completely fell to bits in round two. They lost all composure in that first half. They gave away a penalty, which was handball. It was a bit unlucky, but it was handball. And then in the dying embers of that first half, they gave away another penalty. Just a clumsy foul. It was soft, but it was a clumsy sort of grab of someone's shoulder, and he went down. Just have a bit of common sense. And then they were rattled, completely rattled. The passing was poor. They couldn't put together 2 or 3 passes at a time. So that's one negative. Then what about another positive for Incheon?
I think the fans are really supporting the club, and they've got everybody's back. I know people, and I've said that like Incheon have good fans and we have a good following, but the opening day of the season we had 15,000 people turn out, and it was bitterly cold. We took over 4,000 people to Seoul. We had a decent turnout at Ulsan, despite it being all that way away on a Sunday evening. And generally, the mood from the fans is kind of, we're ready for the season to start proper, and there's not any negativity about the results that have come. We weren't under any illusions about how difficult going to Seoul with all the media coverage of Lingard and it being his first game. Like, we knew that was going to be a difficult game, and we didn't lose. We went to Ulsan, who look like they're going to run away with the league again this year, and we didn't lose. So even though we haven't got that first win, I think the fans know that it's only a matter of time, and hopefully this weekend we'll have another good crowd. To be fair, anything over 10,000 would be great, given that the baseball started now. But yeah, hopefully, good turnout, and the team can respond and we'll get the first 3 points.
Well, I think for Daejeon, one thing that I think is a positive, they can use bad luck to kind of explain or give some kind of excuse to the kind of poor form. So in round 2 and 3, they had chances to take the lead, but just didn't have that sort of slice of luck. And then games have then gone against them. So against Gangwon in round 3, for example, Lee Dong-won, young lad playing at left wing back, he hits the post on about 40 minutes when it's at 0-0. Against Jeju, Kim In-gyun nearly scores by running to put some pressure on the goalkeeper, and he basically blocks the clearance. Now, if that's an inch to the right, it's a goal 6 minutes in, and it's 1-0. Then about 10 minutes later, in that game against Jeju, Gutek seems to get caught in two minds, and he's basically one-on-one with the keeper. A great ball across the top, and he was not the composed striker that he was for his goal against Jeonbuk. So if that goes in, either it's 1-0 or it's 2-0, and the game's a completely different landscape. Against Jeju in that 3-1 loss, they get 2 pens, like I just said, 2 clumsy but also soft pens. They've lost their vice captain to injury with a hamstring injury, Kang In-sung. Anton has been out so far as well. He's missed the first 3 games of the season with injury. Against Gangwon, the free kick, big deflection. Luckily for them, it lands to their player and it's a goal. And then even after Daejeon had found an equaliser, Leandro is sending his perfect ball into the box. And if anybody else other than a winger is there to head it, then it's a goal. If Umlapa or Gutek had stood there, then it might be a different game. It might even have been a win. So I just think they've just had reasons why they can kind of feel a little bit like, yeah, we have lost and we haven't picked up any wins yet, but we have had bad luck, or there are mitigating sort of circumstances to kind of explain it a little bit.
Another positive, I think Magosa scoring. Last year there was a lot of talk when Magosa came back, and we weren't sure how fit and how healthy he was going to be, having had such an amount of time where he didn't play very often. And he scored a couple last year, but he's come back this year and he actually looks more like the Magosa of old. The game against Ulsan, he was a lot more involved. It was his type of game. He was getting lots of the ball, and him and Jerso have a good understanding and work well together. And Magosa getting the 2 goals that he got against Ulsan will be, I think, a catalyst for him to now push on and get some more and get back to the form that we know he's capable of. Last year was kind of just easing him in, but this year, hopefully, we get to see true Magosa.
Yeah. I think for Daejeon, they seem to play a bit better when there's some sort of peril, when the pressure is on. So that those are that is kind of the situation for this weekend. So that might produce a decent performance. Because actually, what I wanted to say as well is the fixtures coming up. Next 4 are difficult. So Incheon away, Ulsan at home, Pohang at home, Suwon FC away. Now I know Ulsan and Pohang are at home, but they're not going to get much out of those 2. So it's kind of becoming quite urgent that they have to get something from this game. So yeah,
I think it's kind of the opposite for us. We've got the Daejeon game this weekend. We've got Jeju and Daegu coming up. We've got Gangwon on the horizon. We've got quite a few home games. And I think for us now, it's going to be a case of we've done the tough thing of going away to Seoul, going away to Ulsan. We've got home games on the trot, and now's the time to start picking up points. And I'm hoping that, if I know for you it's not going to be great, but if we can get this first win on Saturday, then we'll be able to push on and build on that and pick up, 9 points from the next 12 or 12 points from the next 15, and it'll set us up nicely because there is that angst when you're kind of waiting for your first win, because there tends to be in K League always a team who takes forever to get off the mark, and they're the ones who go down. Incheon have been there or thereabouts for most of my time watching them, and it's only been last game or last couple of game wins that have kept us safe. Last year, Suwon Blue Wings had a terrible start. I think their first win of the year was against Incheon about 8 games in. I think it was like the Children's Day weekend. It's important in this league because the games come thick and fast in the summer. And if you're still getting into May, getting into June without much form, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah. And I think both of our teams now need to kind of look at the next few games and turn things around.
Yeah. Well, any team news to talk about for this game for Incheon?
Well, we had a behind closed doors training game against Yangcheon over the last few days over the weekend. There was an open training session where fans got to go and meet, and there have been photos of Delbridge playing and taking part in the actual game. We've seen a lot from Instagram of him training and Shin Jin-ho like training in the gym individually. But this looks to be the first time Delbridge has actually played. And so he's coming back from quite a long-term injury. So I don't know necessarily if he'll start. I don't know if he's going to be fit enough for the bench. But he's getting close to being back. And Poku missed the last game against Ulsan, and hopefully he'll be back in contention as well. He played really well against Seoul, and I think he's finally kind of finding a bit of rhythm. He's settled now. Last year was difficult for him because he was in and out of the team because of the rules regarding how many foreigners were allowed, and obviously we had an extra foreigner last year. But with Hernandez gone, I think opportunity for Mpoku to actually step up and claim a place in the 11. And from what I've seen, like in the Seoul game, I think he definitely should be at least considered to be a starter or a regular starter. He did very well in that game.
He did, yeah. Well, for Daejeon, Anton should be back, I'm told. So that'll be a big boost in the back line. Park Jin Song, the left back, should be back as well. Right back Kang In Song has done his hamstrings. It is definitely out. OJ Sok, obviously the ex-Incheon man, probably will start in his place at right wing back. Or there could be Lee Dong-won as the under-22 option instead. Lee Sun-min is also said to be back this week. He missed the last game with an injury. So there are a few players coming back. There are, I think, probably for both teams, reasons to be a little bit more optimistic. Can I push you for a score prediction?
No. I'm gonna go 2-1 Incheon. I think I think we've got what it takes to beat Daejeon. I do like. I know they had a good season last year, Daejeon, and they're generally a solid team. But I think this is a game where we've talked about it. We need to be looking for this to be our first win. And so I'm going to, neck on the line, I'm going to say Incheon will pick up 3 points, 2-1 Incheon.
I actually had something similar in mind, a 1-0 or a 2-1 win for Incheon. I'm not very confident about this game whatsoever. Just Incheon away, the record against Incheon's terrible. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel good about it. I don't know. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll say a draw, a 2-2 draw. Just try and be slightly positive.
The problem is it's the games you go into where you're not optimistic, where you actually do better usually, which is not a good sign for me.
That's true.
Going in with confidence never works.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll find out at the weekend.
Find out Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, Luke.
All right. And enjoy the game. Thank you.